Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics, Rattlor. The ranks of the Snake Men are growing. Adding to this faction in the Classics toy line is King Hsss's general known as Rattlor. Rattlor comes in the standard Masters of the Universe Classics blister card packaging, featuring the Snake Men logo sticker on the front of the blister bubble. The back shows off a selection of other figures available in the Classics line, as well as a brand new bio for Rattlor. So Rattlor here is based more on his vintage look rather than his 2000X look, which gave him armor and a much beefier build. The figure has a really impressive sculpt, featuring a lot of detailing in the scales of his skin. While we first see this body used in the Snake Men 2-pack, it's obvious that this body was sculpted specifically for Rattlor, making this figure an almost completely unique sculpt. The paint deco is beautifully applied, with a nice rusty red used for the majority of his scaly skin. The yellow that's used on his chest and arms has a nice color fade as it gets closer to the edges, closer to the red scales. And the blue stripes going down his arms and legs are very vibrant, with each individual scale painted. His belt is accented by metallic copper edging and a bright green Snake Men logo in the center. The head sculpt is quite wicked looking, with cool horn-like scales sticking off the top of his head, slit pupil eyes, and his open mouth, which has some really cool detailing on the inside, along with a nice shiny paint job. Alright, so let's scope out Rattlor here and check out everything we've got going on with him. So first let's talk about his articulation. It's very standard and basic. You can see the head turns left and right, does move slightly up and down. He's got the nice joints at the shoulders, allowing for forward, backward, up and down movement. Very tight joints, very tight joints. Swivels at the bicep, bend at the elbow, swivel at the wrist. You got the torso cut articulation, swivel at the waist there. You've got the nice thigh articulation. You can get good poses there. You'd be able to sit in a vehicle, on Battle Cat, on a Griffin. Bend at the elbow, or the elbow, weird. Bend at the knee there. And then you got the standard ankle joint. Of course, it is a newer style ankle joint. The pin is not showing. Very tight ankles, so moves very good. All the articulation is nice and tight on this guy, so you should be able to get some great posing out of him. Now the tail piece, the way this works, you can see that he does have this piece sculpted and attached to his back. It is very solid. The whole tail is hard, solid, so it doesn't really bend. You can see it does have some flexibility at the bottom, but it doesn't bend or anything like that. It does have an articulation cut right here, so you can swivel it around. It moves the tail around just like that. And it's really cool too. You can see how the rattle piece is sculpted a little bit larger. It does a really good job of looking like a nice little rattle at the end of a snake tail there. And the rattling feature is still intact. Now, if you remember the vintage figure, the way it worked is you kind of shook the figure and he made a good sound effect. There was probably some pieces of plastic on the inside of the figure that rattled. On this one, the way it works is they actually have the rattle inside the rattle on his tail. So there's little pieces of plastics probably floating around in there. You can shake that around and you can hear the rattling. It's kind of quiet, so I don't know if you can hear it on here. So it's not as loud as the vintage figure, but that's because in the vintage figure it was inside the hollow figure and you shook it around, it was a little louder. It's inside the tail, so it's a little quieter, but it does still rattle, and I think it's really cool that they went the extra mile to add that feature. So the last thing that we got with Rattlor, of course, is his extending neck. Now, the vintage action figure, of course, had a button that you would press, and the neck would come shooting out. This one works in a very similar fashion to Mecha-Neck, where we have an attachment. So in order to do that, you just need to pop the head off of Rattlor here. And then we've got the neck attachment. It's got the little ball socket on the bottom, ball joint on the top, so it looks just like the neck here. Just pops right on the ball joint of the neck. It is molded so it fits in with the scale sculpting on the figure, so it looks really nice once you get it on there. And then you just pop the head on the top of the neck. You can hear that nice, tight pop noise. It actually fits very good on there. And there we go. Now we have Rattlor with his extending neck. And this works really cool because if you remember the way the vintage figure worked, it was just like a solid yellow round piece because it had to fit down inside of his body. Now we've actually got a neck that has sculpting on it that matches the body. It's got the scales. It's red on the back. It's yellow on the front. So it matches the paint job and it looks really cool. You can still pose it around at the bottom, so it twists at the bottom. It does move slightly forward, backwards, and then you can also swivel the neck up at the top. So that'll help get you some different posing there. We can get some great battle stances with Rattlor, you know, striking his foes. It's really cool. It's a very good way to work this action feature.
The neck attachment works really great and is a nice way to recreate that action feature from the vintage figure. You can get some really great poses with Rattlor, making it look as if he's lashing out and attacking his foes. For an accessory, Rattlor includes the classic Snake Men's staff. The staff portion is painted with the same metallic copper seen on his belt, with the snake wrapped around it matching the color of his skin. The staff is nice and solid with just a little bit of flexibility to it and can be held in either one of his hands. For a second accessory, he includes a black Horde armband that can be slipped onto either one of his arms. This is a nice nod to the Filmation cartoon series, where Rattlor was a member of the evil Horde. His new bio also explains that he defected to the Horde, so this just adds another option for display. You can decide if you'd rather him be standing behind King Hsss or Hordak. Alright guys, it's comparison time! Here's Rattlor standing alongside his vintage counterpart. The overall style of both figures is very similar, but you can see all of the nice updates for this Classics version. And here he is standing alongside the 2000X version, which reimagined the character to have a much bulkier body and armor. Mattel has said that it is possible we may see this armor released eventually for the Classics Rattlor, as it was sculpted but not included due to cost. So there is hope for fans who prefer this style. I must say, I love this figure. In my opinion, Rattlor ranks right up there with recent figures such as Fisto and Cobra Khan as being a pretty much perfect update of a classic character. I love the paint deco, I love the way the neck feature looks, and I think it's really cool that the old rattling feature was even added in. He's just a really great looking action figure with nice tight articulation, great paint, and cool accessories. Plus, it's nice finally adding some more of the big guns to the Snake Men faction. Rattlor is part of the 2012 Club Eternia subscription and will be available on MattyCollector.com on October 15th, 2012. Until next time,